certain things gonna have to change. Certain things gonna have to be different. Because now you know new stuff.
I seen a bullet going Suge head. I thought he was dead.
So Orlando shot across Dre?
He leaned over on the window, we rolled down the window, popped.
Who was it?
They was drove on my side, I would popped them. You know what I'm saying? But they was on the other side.
Almost 3 decades after Pac passed, new investigations are dropping wild info that flips the whole story on its head. Everything people thought they knew about how Pac died? Man, that was barely half the truth. And now some of the biggest names in the rap world are tangled up in this mess in ways nobody expected. Let's break down how the West Coast lost its realest one. Tupac Amaru Shakur, born St. Parish Crooks on June 16, 1971, wasn't just another artist chasing a deal. This man was the blueprint for West Coast rawness. By the mid-90s, Pac had already put out straight classics like Me Against the World in 95 and the iconic double album All Eyes on Me in 96. He wasn't just lighting up tracks either. He was in movies like Juice and Poetic Justice, turning into everything someone coming from the struggle dreamed of becoming. But this is where things take that sharp, ugly turn that flipped hip-hop forever.
If you ask me, that was all in-house.
So you believe Tupac and Biggie murder was in-house?
I believe Biggie and Tupac was in-house. All had something to do with death row people.
Pac wasn't just fighting for his spot in the industry. He was caught right in the middle of what people now call the East Coast versus West Coast battle. And trust, this wasn't some playful back and forth anymore. This was turning into something cold, something dangerous, something grown folks whispered about because it was that real. To understand why it got so dark, you gotta look back at the late 80s when West Coast heavy hitters like NWA started checking New York's long-held dominance. But things really got messy in 1991 when diss tracks like Tim Dog's Compton pushed way past competition. Then came Suge Knight putting together Death Row Records, a label with serious street ties that shook the whole industry the moment it stood up. Then Bad Boy Records jumped into the picture in 1993.
There's no way, bro. There's no way that I'ma have a convoy of cars and somebody's gonna ride up to my principal and kill them. There's no way, unless it's in-house. Somebody we know, somebody we cool with, some familiar face that we let go past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 different cars.
With Sean Puff Daddy Combs building an NYC empire and pushing the notorious B.I.G., Christopher Wallace, into rap superstardom with the album Ready to Die. What started as simple coast-to-coast competition turned into a personal battle, and the tension was building to something violent. But the moment that changed everything forever went down on November 30th, 1994, inside Quad Recording Studios in Times Square. Picture this. Pac pulls up to the building with no clue he's walking into a full-blown setup. They hit him 5 times and snatched around 40 bands worth of jewelry off him. And when he stumbles into the lobby, fighting to stay conscious, he spots 2 faces that would haunt him until his final day, Biggie Smalls and Puff Daddy. Whether they were actually tied to the setup or were just chilling there, Pac became convinced right then that the people he thought were solid had turned on him. That moment lit a fire inside him that the world still talks about today. In that 1995 Vibe magazine interview, Pac aimed straight at everybody and lit the whole room on fire. He called out Combs, Biggie, Uptown Records, Andre Harrell, said they were all snakes moving dirty. That one interview shredded every bit of friendship that used to be there, and from that moment, it wasn't just tension anymore. It was battle. After serving time, Pac got bailed out by Suge Knight for around $1.4 million in October 95, and the second he linked with Death Row, the beef shot into a whole new universe. At the 95 Source Awards, Suge was throwing slick shots at Combs for always jumping into photos like it was a hobby. Snoop was clowning the entire East Coast crowd on stage, and then came Hit 'Em Up, Pac's June 96 diss track that broke every rule in the game and then some. He bragged about being with Biggie's wife, Faith Evans, and warned the whole bad boy camp in a way nobody had seen before. This wasn't just rap anymore. This was battlefield talk coming straight from someone who felt betrayed and wasn't scared to crash out behind his truth. But what most people didn't get back then was that another piece of this story was forming behind the scenes. Something that would eventually become the final spark. 2 months before the Vegas night, in July '96, out in Lakewood, Cali, Ma Peru homie Trayvon Trey Lane got pressed inside a Foot Locker by some Southside Crips, including a young dude named Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. They snatched something a lot of folks thought was small, but to the streets it wasn't small at all. A death row chain. That chain meant respect. And losing it meant disrespect, gang tension, and straight up danger. And Orlando wasn't just some random person. He was the nephew of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a man who would later turn into a major piece of the whole puzzle. So when September 7th, 1996 rolled around, all these loose threads, the East Coast versus West Coast beef, the street tension, the chain snatch, the personal pride, everything connected in Vegas like it was destiny coming for its payment. Pac was in town for the Mike Tyson fight against Bruce Seldon, chilling in a death row connected suite, still riding high off the success of All Eyes on Me. He had no idea his final days were already ticking down. The night kicked off at the MGM Grand Arena, where Tyson destroyed Seldon with a round 1 TKO. The fight ended quick, but the real hit of the night was only getting started. In the MGM lobby right after the fight, Trey Lane spotted him, Orlando Anderson, the same young dude who had taken his death row chain 2 months earlier. Lane pointed Orlando out to Pac, and Pac, being Pac, didn't hesitate for even a heartbeat. "You from the South?" he asked, a direct street call out to the Southside Crips. And then Pac swung first, unleashing a 30-second stomp out with Suge and the whole crew jumping in. Security rushed in, cameras caught the whole thing, and the fuse for the night's chaos was officially lit. Later that night, Pac told his girl, Kata Jones, about the fade that went down at the Luxor Hotel, not realizing he had basically signed his own death certificate without even knowing it. Around 10:30 p.m., Pac switched his whole fit and jumped into Suge Knight's black 1996 BMW 750 IL. They were headed to Club 662, a death row hangout named after Ma Peru codes, and the energy was feeling wild already. Pac's bodyguard, Frank Alexander, wasn't even riding with him. He ended up driving Kata's car instead. That one move would turn into a painful twist nobody saw coming. Between 11 p.m. and 11:05 p.m. on the Vegas Strip, LVMPD bike patrol stopped Suge and Pac for blasting the music too loud and not having the front plates on. The plates were in the trunk, so officers let them go. No ticket, no nothing. Around 11:10 p.m. at Flamingo Road and Koval Lane near the old Maxim Hotel, they pulled up to a red light. Pac was in a good mood, leaning out the window when he spotted 2 women in a Cadillac Escalade. He couldn't resist hollering, yelling, "Come through to 662," while hanging all the way out the passenger window, wide open and fully exposed without realizing how risky it was. And then, at 11:15 p.m., the moment that changed everything, a white Cadillac rolled up smooth, creeping right beside them. Later investigations revealed the car was stolen, and from the back passenger seat, a shooter fired off 13 to 14 shots from a .40 caliber Glock 22. Pac was hit 4 times, chest, pelvis, thigh, and hand, while Suge caught a graze on the head from flying fragments. The driver of the white caddy, Terrence Bubble Up Brown, reportedly sped off into the night, and nobody inside the BMW even shot back. Pac wasn't strapped at all. Suge smashed the gas, trying to rush Pac to safety, but they got stopped again on Harmon Avenue before police finally escorted them to University Medical Center. There was a witness riding in one of the trailing cars that night, Yaki Gaddafi from the Outlaws. He reportedly saw exactly who squeezed the trigger, but before he could ever sit down with investigators, he was unalived in a separate shooting on November 10th, 1996. One by one, the people who knew the full story were disappearing. Pac arrived at the emergency room in critical condition, barely hanging on. Doctors had to remove a bullet that tore through his right lung. For 6 painful days, he lay in a coma, while his mother, Afeni Shakur, stayed by his side, refusing to leave for a second. On September 13th, 1996, at 4:03 p.m., Tupac Amaru Shakur took his final breath after respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. Gone at just 25 years old, way too young. The official cause was multiple gunshot wounds, and when the internal bleeding wouldn't stop, Afeni had to make the heartbreaking call to let him go. After a private funeral, Pac's body was cremated, and in true West Coast fashion, members of the Outlaws even smoked some of his ashes in a blunt as a tribute to their brother. The whole rap world was crushed, but the violence, that was only the start of a twisted new era, because the 27-year cold case had one OG who just couldn't stop talking for almost 3 decades straight. Pac's homicide stayed one of the most infamous, unsolved cases in the entire country. The Vegas PD investigation was a mess. They botched key details, ignored the MGM Grand surveillance footage, and didn't chase the white Cadillac that every witness kept bringing up. Year after year rolled by with no arrests, no answers, and no justice for Pac or his family. And when the system leaves a giant hole like that, the streets fill it with theories, rumors, and street science that spreads everywhere. There are a few major narratives that researchers, journalists, and Pac's fans have been fighting over for nearly 30 years. The first one, and the theory most people rock with, is straight gang business. The talk is that the Southside Compton Crips wanted revenge for Pac and the Death Row crew stomping out Orlando Anderson at the MGM, with Dwayne Keefe D. Davis allegedly calling shots from inside the white Cadillac. This version lines up with the street politics of the time. This theory got even louder after a 2002 LA Times report suggested there might have been ties between the Crips and Bad Boy Records, claims hinting that people like Lil Cease could have moved East Coast money toward the hit. Nothing proven, but enough smoke to keep the rumors alive. The second major theory points the finger directly at Biggie and Puff. Pac had already accused them of lining up the 1994 Quad Studio setup, and this version says Combs put $1 million bag on Pac and Suge after the drama at the '95 Source Awards. LAPD Detective Greg Kading, who ran a federal task force years later, said he uncovered evidence showing Combs paid the Crips through middleman Terrence Brown. And when Faith Evans' alleged fling with Pac got added to the mix, it made the motive sound even louder. Combs has denied everything for decades, and no charges ever hit his name. But the third theory? That's the darkest one of them all. Suge Knight supposedly setting the whole thing up. The talk is that Suge feared Pac was ready to leave Death Row because the money was getting shady. So he either ordered the hit, or he was the real target in a power play that went off the rails. Suge's strange silence after the shooting, and his 2017 claims that the bullets were really meant for him, kept the rumors spinning non-stop. Detective Kading even tied Suge to Biggie's later homicide through hitman Poochie Faust and a supposed 25-rack bounty, keeping the speculation wide open. And then there's the theory that refuses to stay buried, the idea that Pac is still alive. Conspiracy believers swear Pac faked his own passing so he could disappear from all the chaos resurfacing under his Machiavelli persona, a nod to Niccolo Machiavelli, the philosopher who people claim wrote about faking your end to outsmart your enemies. Fans point to supposed sightings in Cuba, hidden clues in the Don Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory, and even the strange details around his cremation. Memes keep it going, legends keep it going, and hearts keep it going. And even though the autopsy and his family shut the theory down, it's still alive because fans can't stand the thought of their king being gone for real. It's emotion more than evidence, but it hits deep. Then there's the government angle, the FBI conspiracy theory. Pac's mom, Afeni, was a Black Panther, which put Pac on COINTELPRO style watch lists. Declassified FBI documents from 2011 even showed the Jewish Defense League was extorting Pac for protection money. Add in the LAPD corruption and off-duty cops working death row security, and you can see why some folks distrust everything the system ever claimed. The evidence is thin, but to people who know the government's history with Black activists, the theory lands different. But this is where the whole story takes the wildest twist imaginable. Enter Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, born June 14, 1963 in Compton, California. Davis came up heavy in the South Side Compton Crip world during the 80s and 90s crack era. As a mid-level hustler and Crip enforcer, he built a rep for violence and earned stripes in the street game. He even did a bid from 85 to 89 for substance trafficking. And by the mid-90s, he was running a loose crew of Crips deep in the middle of the Blood Crip tension. His nephew, Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, the same young dude Pac and the Death Row crew stomped out inside the MGM lobby. Keefe positioned himself as Orlando's protector, later bragging in interviews about the Crip mentality of revenge. He said, "Them jumping on my nephew gave us the ultimate green light to do something," and followed it with the cold line, "Tupac chose the wrong game to play." That mindset alone showed where his head was at. But here's where Keith D messed up badly. And not in the streets, but legally. The man just couldn't stop talking. In the 2000s, facing federal substance charges, Davis flipped and became an informant, cooperating with LAPD and the FBI on gang cases, including Biggie's '97 homicide, to get breaks on his sentences. From 2008 to 2010, during what's now called his proffer era, Keith D got immunity deals that he now claims protect him from any Pac-related charges. But then ego stepped in, and ego always costs. Keith D chased a book deal. In 2019, he released Compton Street Legend, and even before that, he popped up on BET's docuseries Death Row Chronicles. After that, he couldn't stay off the cameras. Interviews, podcasts, YouTube shows. Anybody with a mic or a lens, he was there running his mouth and retelling the same wild story with new twists every time. Every interview made him feel more untouchable and more exposed at the same time. He went on camera detailing how he rode in the white Cadillac during the September 7th, 1996 drive-by, talking like he was untouchable. He even admitted to supplying the .40 caliber Glock that DeAndre Big Dre Smith used that night. He kept framing everything like it was just street payback for the MGM stomp out. He denied being the one who pulled the trigger, but he straight up admitted he was the shot caller in one of his most talked about sit-downs. And none of this came from some interrogation room pressure. None of it came from backdoor immunity talks or legal loopholes. This was an OG bragging about his part in one of hip-hop's biggest tragedies. On camera, for attention, for interviews, and for a check. Anybody who pointed a lens at him got the story like he was proud of it. Then July 18th, 2023 hit, and LVMPD finally rushed his Henderson home. They grabbed electronics, .40 caliber ammo, photos of Anderson and Pac, and even a copy of his own book, basically the man's entire highlight reel. And on September 29th, 2023, almost 27 years to the day of Pac's passing, Dwayne Keith D. Davis finally got indicted for first-degree homicide with gang enhancements. Prosecutors say he gave the green light after the MGM fade and rode shotgun in the white caddy while Big Dre opened fire on the BMW. Davis pleaded not guilty and suddenly claimed all those stories he told for years were just made-up tales for book sales and street shine. But prosecutors aren't buying a single word of it. As one official said, he spoke in nearly every forum imaginable, basically throwing away any protection. That line alone showed how badly he played himself. Those immunity deals he bragged about, they didn't save him. And the grand jury transcripts unsealed on September 7th, 2025, exactly 29 years after the shooting, dropped straight bombs. Crips versus Bloods politics tied to Bad Boy and Death Row, the chain snatch that started the domino effect. Diddy's alleged $1 million bounty, which he denies. Pac hanging out the window, making himself exposed. And DeAndre Smith being the actual shooter. But Smith and Orlando Anderson are both gone. Smith passed in 2004, Anderson in 1998, leaving Davis as the last man still standing. Meanwhile, Suge Knight is locked up serving 28 years for a 2015 manslaughter case, and even from behind bars, he's been throwing out his own wild claims. In a July 2025 interview, Suge made new accusations, saying Pac's mom, Afeni, helped stage some kind of suicide by cop situation, claims the Shakur family immediately called delusional. And when people ask why Suge doesn't just finally speak up about what he really knows, those close to it always give the same cold answer. Some things are too dangerous to say out loud. And now we get to the trial that keeps dragging and the theories that won't fade. As the 30-year mark of Pac's passing creeps closer, this case has taken another wild turn. Or really a string of frustrating delays that have the Shakur family and fans asking if justice is ever going to show up. Davis first caught a $750,000 bail with house arrest in June 2024. But that got snatched back quick on June 27, 2024 over some questionable money that supposedly came from a movie deal. Davis blamed Vlad TV lies and producer snake moves, but none of that stopped the court from locking him right back down. He's still sitting in the Clark County Detention Center, and the trial keeps getting pushed back 3 times now. First from November 2024, then to February 9th, 2026 for new evidence review, and then pushed again to August 10th, 2026, because the defense said they needed more time to dig through discovery. The whole situation is dragging like it doesn't want an ending. Steve Wolfson didn't even push back on it. Now 62 years old, Davis is sitting there waiting on whatever fate hits him next, riding with new lawyers, Robert Dragovich and Michael Dulo, who keep saying he didn't do a thing. His legal squad filed a suppression motion on November 4th, 2025, trying to wipe the proffer tapes off the table, claiming the government pulled some outrageous moves. They argue that his 2008 LAPD, 2009 FBI, and 2010 Compton PD agreements gave him use immunity, meaning he shouldn't be getting burned by his own words. But Judge Carly Kearney wasn't having it. She shut the dismissal motion down in July 2025. So Davis ran to the Nevada Supreme Court with an appeal on July 29, 2025. And as of November 2025, it's still hanging in limbo. And that wasn't the only chaos in his file. Davis also caught a conviction for an unrelated jail battery case back in April 2020. He got hit with 16 to 40 months but scored credit for time served. His own son even testified, trying to claim juror misconduct to get the case tossed. But that got denied too in November 2025. During a July 23, 2024 court appearance, Davis snapped, yelling, "They're trashing my family over some bail evidence." His frustration was boiling over. But while he sits waiting for his trial, the theories about who really took down Pac keep multiplying like wild rumors in a barbershop. Some folks are now pointing at someone nobody expected, Reggie Wright Jr., Death Row's former head of security. And in recent interviews after Davis got arrested, Keefe D himself hinted that if he's going down for Pac's homicide, then Reggie and them need to be going to jail for Biggie. That comment shook a lot of people. Meanwhile, other observers say both bodies, Pac's and Biggie's, were inside jobs cooked up by folks tied to Death Row, not East Coast enemies at all. And now let's run through the other names that keep popping up besides Davis. Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, Davis's nephew, and the Southside Crip enforcer Pac stomped out in the MGM lobby. Witnesses kept placing him in the backseat of the white caddy that night. A Crip affiliate even testified in the 2025 transcripts that Anderson caught the Glock from Davis, but passed it to Big Dre because his angle inside the car wasn't right. Anderson denied everything while he was alive. He even sued Pac's estate for assault in '97, and Afeni fired back with a countersuit. But none of it ever went anywhere in the end. Because on May 29, 1998, Anderson got taken out in a Compton gang shootout at just 21 years old, taking whatever truth he had straight to the grave. Terrence Bubble Up Brown was allegedly the one behind the wheel of that white caddy. He had connections on both sides, Southside Crips and Bad Boy, and even worked security for Junior MAFIA. In Detective Kading's 2009 proffer with Davis, Brown was identified as the guy who supposedly got Combs' offer through a middleman. Folks in Compton said Brown used to brag about handling business for East Coast bread, like he was proud of the role he played. But in 2015, Brown died in a car crash, taking his version of the story with him. Then you got DeAndre Big Dre Smith, the man named as the actual shooter in the 2025 grand jury docs, a massive 6'6", 400-pound Crip enforcer who allegedly let off the Glock that Davis supplied. Testimony said Anderson's angle inside the caddy was blocked, so he handed the piece to Smith, who had the better shot. Smith even matched the witness sketches from that night, but he didn't live long either. He got taken out in March 2004 in a drive-by that some said was Mob Peru payback. And then we get to Sean Diddy Combs, a name that shows up 47 times in the September 2025 transcripts. Davis's proffers accused him of putting up that $1 million bag on Pac and Suge. A 2024 lawsuit from Cassie Ventura claimed Combs bragged about the hit behind closed doors, and a 2003 Kirk Burroughs lawsuit said similar things before it got tossed. Combs has denied every single accusation, calling the whole thing pure fiction. LVMPD even confirmed he's not considered a suspect. But that didn't stop the Shakur family from hiring private investigator Alex Alonso in October 2024 to dig into his possible involvement. And now we hit the conspiracy theory that refuses to stay buried. The idea that Pac faked his passing and is still alive somewhere, living under aliases like Machiavelli. Believers swear the clues are all there. They point to the album, The Don Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory, saying it references Machiavelli's trick of faking passing to fool enemies. They say Pac's birthday, June 16th, is 1 plus 6 equals 7. His age, 25, 2 plus 5 equals 7. His end time, 4:03 p.m., 4 plus 0 plus 3 equals 7. They claim the album cover showing Pac crucified is giving resurrection energy. They point to the liner notes that say, "Exit Tupac, enter Machiavelli." More than 100 alleged Pac sightings have popped up since '96. Cuba, New Mexico, Barbados, Europe, Malaysia, everywhere you can think of. In 2025, people online even swore Pac tweeted from Albania on a burner account. A July 2025 viral clip showed a hooded figure walking in Poland, and the internet instantly went crazy with MJX Pac swap memes. Every single one has been debunked, but the reason these stories keep living is simple. They give people something the truth never could: hope that Pac didn't really leave us. Fans can't let go of the hope, and Suge Knight hasn't exactly helped. He's been throwing gasoline on the rumors for years with those cryptic 2018 prison calls saying things like, "Pac knew too much. He's safe." And then that wild 2025 interview where he claimed Afeni helped stage something for insurance. All it did was make the whole situation even messier. But why do these theories stay alive almost 30 years later? One analysis put it perfectly. These theories are coping tools for senseless violence, the same way people cling to JFK or moon landing conspiracies. And with the LAPD's history and the messy death row connections, the theories hit even harder. Deep down, it feels impossible for people to accept that someone as powerful as Pac could be taken out by something as grimy and street level as a gang retaliation. And in today's world, with deep fakes, endless true crime podcasts, and cold cases getting cracked every week, the Pac is alive idea gives people something comforting to hold on to. A version of Pac who escaped the madness. Maybe somewhere writing manifestos, still critiquing the system, still pushing truth. If the powers that be can plan an end, then why couldn't Pac plan a countermove? But Afeni Shakur's own words on her deathbed, "My son is gone," along with estate filings showing no hidden money, should have closed the door. As biographer Stacey Robinson said in The New Yorker, the whole thing is grief's poetry. Pac's immortality lives in his lyrics, not on some hidden island. And with over 75 million records sold, these theories just keep his voice echoing forever, whether he planned an escape or not. Now, as Davis's trial creeps toward August 2026, Pac's family is demanding real answers. His sister, Kia Shakur, said, 27 years waiting for justice, and that frustration is heavy. The case now hangs on Davis's alleged role as the shot caller and how it links into the bigger East Coast versus West Coast battle. Prosecutors are armed with his own words, stuff from proffers, books, podcasts, and documentaries. The defense is ready to argue he made everything up for attention and a check. The truth? It probably died with Orlando Anderson in 1998, with Big Dre Smith in 2004, with Bubble Up Brown in 2015. The only one left is the OG who couldn't stop talking. Whether his mouth ends up convicting him, or whether he walks free as an unreliable storyteller chasing royalty checks, nobody knows just yet. But here's the one thing we do know for sure. Tupac Amaru Shakur was shot on September 7, 1996, and died 6 days later at just 25 years old. He left behind music that shaped generations, a mother who mourned him until her last breath, and mysteries the world still can't fully piece together. And somewhere out there, in courtrooms, in podcasts, in comment sections, and in X threads, the debate keeps going like it's never gonna stop. People still arguing nonstop about what really went down that night in Vegas. And maybe that's the wildest part of Pac's whole legacy. He lived loud, he moved bold, he left an impact nobody could ever silence, and almost 30 years later, we still can't stop bringing his name up. Real ones never fade, they say. And in that sense, Pac's spirit feels immortal out here. If you vibed with this deep dive, drop a comment, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear the real story. and I'll catch you on the next one.